Cabin in the Woods is one movie that deserves a sequel, but probably won't anytime soon. With people like Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard co-writing it, the film is about 5 young people who find themselves in a cabin in the woods, which is actually a kind of hunting ground where people are coerced into going so that they could be sacrificially killed. Now, unlike most slasher movies, these killings have to follow an order and other rules because the whole thing is basically an ancient ritual. And in this video, we're gonna explore this ritual and its various iterations that differ from each other depending on the country they are being performed in. So, it is obvious that all ritual sacrifices are basically offered to some sort of deity, right? So is the case in Cabin in the Woods. And I think it's important that we learn about these gods, the ancient ones, before we explore the ritual itself. So the question arises. So, if you like this video, do remember to hit those like and subscribe buttons, because those 2 small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you these marvelous videos. Now, let's begin. Who are the Ancient Ones? The Ancient Ones are these massive, godlike creatures that first roamed Earth way before the existence of humans on Earth. They live deep beneath the ground, kept in a sort of enforced nap. However, that slumber is not eternal and could be broken. They stay snoozing only if people deliver ritual sacrifices every year. If a ritual is not completed with all the rules and regulations, or if the ritual is not performed at all, they'll wake up really cranky, and that kinda means that humanity will cease to exist. So, it's better that the rituals are performed without fail and forever, once a year. Naturally, humanity's been holding these rituals forever. People used to keep it simple, like tossing some poor young virgin girl into a volcano. But over time, the Ancient Ones wanted more pizzazz, drama, more entertainment. Think of it as them wanting bigger, bloodier, and more elaborately violent entertainment. So instead of one person and a volcano, we got hours, sometimes days, of horrifying ordeals, plus multiple victims. The Ancient Ones are cool with humans customizing the process to an extent, but they do enforce a few big rules to make sure the ritual meets their standards. These creatures see everything from the comfort of their underground layers, and they expect a good show, apparently. Eventually, a global secret organization, often called the Organization, came together to handle these elaborate sacrifices worldwide. Governments likely know about it and funnel money and victims to keep the gig afloat. You could think about it like the setup in Harry Potter, where our governments know about the wizarding world, but ensure that it all remains a secret. So yeah, even in the world of Cabin in the Woods, you'll find no one openly talking about it, but behind the scenes, they're dead serious about appeasing the Ancient Ones, because they know what will happen if these guys wake up. The organization sets up special facilities in multiple countries, so that if one team flubs the ritual, or the victims die in the wrong order, or break one of those arcane rules, another facility somewhere else might still succeed. They've got a director in each location, someone who communicates with the Ancient Ones, and presumably takes orders on how to keep them happy. In short, the organization is like a super dark event planning committee for unstoppable gods beneath our feet. They run the show, recruit victims, and set the stage for the kind of horror the Ancient Ones crave. We only get a glimpse of an Ancient One at the film's climax. It's huge, and judging from the shape of its hand, possibly humanoid. The one we see at the end of the movie has a body that looks like it's made of molten rock or lava. However, the others may have different appearances and attributes. The lava guy is definitely large enough to rip through buildings, and presumably the whole world, without breaking a sweat. They're dormant most of the time, but their power is off the charts. We don't know all the ins and outs of their powers, but one thing is obvious. They can yank humanity's existence like a bad weed whenever they want. It's clearly been suggested throughout the movie that there isn't just one Ancient One. According to the original script, each country has its own dormant Ancient One lying in wait for a botched ritual. If every region fails, we're talking total apocalypse. Now that we know who or what the Ancient Ones from the movie are, we can go into details of the rituals. An overview of the ritual. So, the ritual happens simultaneously in multiple locations around the world. The Ancient Ones demand these sacrifices, and if at least one of these simultaneous events succeeds, humanity gets another year of peace. If they all fail, The Ancient Ones wake up mad and wipe out civilization. Sounds dramatic, but that's how the system works. The ritual targets young victims. Each country's ceremony follows a unique rule set, based on its culture and the specific type of horror it's spoofing or paying homage to. Either way, if the process hits every requirement, the Ancient Ones accept the sacrifice. If something goes sideways or victims outsmart the system, that country's ritual counts as a fail, and everyone waits to see if another branch in a different part of the world can pull it off. Main rules. The basic rules are the same across the globe. Each country picks youthful participants, often teenage or college-age folks, and the location hosting the ritual sets up a situation that forces these victims to encounter deadly supernatural or monstrous threats. A successful run checks off every box the Ancient Ones laid down. Once a year, the organization, a top-secret group that coordinates all this, makes sure each branch is ready to roll. They watch every site with cameras, feed data to the control center, and pray that at least one branch succeeds before dawn. But let's get to each of the country-wise rituals we saw in the movie, the most important of them being the American ritual. The North American version is the best documented. The American branch grabs 5 archetypes: an athlete, a whore, a scholar, a fool, and a virgin. These labels don't always match the victim's actual personalities, so the organization might use chemical manipulation or subtle mind games to shape them. The Ancient Ones want to see each archetype punished for certain transgressions. A creepy harbinger warns the group about their impending doom, but they must ignore him and continue. The one in the movie is called Mordecai, a gas station attendant, who tells them that they can reach the cabin they are looking for, but getting back from there is what they should be worried about. Once they arrive at the cabin, the stage for this horror show, after spending the day bathing in the lake, playing some truth and dare, the kids come across a basement. Of course, they do not shy away from exploring the basement and the items used in it. It pretty much looked like the room of haunted articles from the first Conjuring movie, but without the priest blessing the room, and without the watchful eyes of Ed and Lorraine Warren. All the items in the basement connects them to a monster, ranging from giant bats and snakes to werewolves, clowns, and even Cenobites from the Hellraiser universe. Yep, there was a spherical puzzle box that looked like a lament configuration, and close to the end of the movie, we do get to see a monster that looks like a Cenobite. Anyway, the group inadvertently chooses an item, uses it, and unleashes their monster. The monster hunts them down according to the Ancient One's demands. In the movie, Dana reads from an old diary that belonged to a one-armed girl named Patience Buckner, whose family enjoyed pain. According to the rules of the ritual, the whore dies first because she's the most tainted in the god's eyes. The athlete, scholar, and fool follow in whatever order fits the ritual script, though once the virgin is tempted, the scholar's life is considered extra expendable. Each time someone dies, a lab technician in the facility pulls a lever that pours blood onto a stone tablet. Each tablet features a carving that represents one of the 5 roles, so every death is recorded. The virgin's death is optional, but she must suffer. Whether she actually dies or barely survives, the gods remain satisfied as long as her ordeal is brutal enough. The Japanese ritual. Japan has a different approach, which is pretty much rooted in J-horror style. Their victims tend to be even younger, elementary or middle school girls, grouped together in a classroom-like setting, which hints at a Ringu or Ju-on type vibe. The Japanese branch doesn't feature a harbinger or require nudity. It's just a bunch of scared kids facing a vengeful spirit or a ghostly presence. And their hope is that the scenario ends in tragedy for them, so the Ancient Ones get their fill. The American version leans into slasher tropes, but in Japan, it's all about that supernatural creep factor. The Swedish ritual. Over in Sweden, the ritual revolves around a natural disaster scenario. The organization's monitors show a giant volcanic eruption, apparently footage straight from the film Dante's Peak. This ritual spoofs the classic disaster movie instead of a haunted house or slasher. While we don't see many details on Swedish participants, we know they must face some cataclysmic events like a volcano or avalanche. That replaces monsters or ghosts, but the ultimate goal remains the same. The Ancient One wants those victims to die on schedule. The Argentinian ritual. The Buenos Aires branch of the ritual favors a giant ape, a clear nod to kaiju or giant monster films. You could imagine something along the lines of King Kong rampaging through a city. The American facility keeps giant monsters on standby too, which suggests the North American ritual might sometimes include a kaiju theme. But in Argentina, the giant ape is front and center, and it's presumably a big star of that branch's yearly attempt. The Spanish ritual. Madrid's ritual features a burning structure, likely a castle, so it channels Gothic horror. Dark corridors, flickering torches, ominous chanting. Any image you have of old-school European spookiness probably fits right into this scenario. The footage on the organization screens shows flames licking the walls, which points to a grim fate for whoever gets trapped inside. Gothic horror relies on atmosphere and oppressive tension, so the Spanish event probably offers the Ancient Ones a grand, fiery spectacle. Mythic influences and inspirations. These ancient gods have a serious likeness to the monsters created by H.P. Lovecraft. He created the Cthulhu mythos, where cosmic horrors lurk in all the corners of reality, threatening humanity with unstoppable, indescribable power. You don't usually see these things in full detail. You just know they're enormous, vengeful, and terrifying. That same goes for the Ancient Ones. We only get hints of their might, which makes them scarier. At the same time, the Ancient Ones could be a shout-out to old-school mythological beings like the Greek Titans or similar chaos deities. Stories about colossal monsters that predate humanity show up in Roman, Mesopotamian, Babylonian, Sumerian, Minoan, and Vedic legends, among others. Even the Judeo-Christian tradition has its own formidable opponents, like the Nephilim, Behemoth, and Leviathan. In the Book of Revelation, there are monstrous beings that wreak havoc and represent ultimate destruction, much like the Ancient Ones.
Oh, shit.
Significance of monsters and the system purge. At the end of the movie, Dana and Marty are the only survivors who managed to get inside the facility of the organization. Here, they managed to unleash all the monsters that have been kept imprisoned by the organization. All those monsters in the facility were basically an extension of the Ancient One's will. They exist to punish human victims, especially wayward young folks. They create or control every single monster in those global facilities, and they can observe a wide range of events simultaneously. Though they're not straight up omniscient, Dana breaks down the entire system in what's called the System Purge. Every monstrous being in the organization locked up gets unleashed. The facility staff never stood a chance, as the place turned into a bloodbath. During this purge, Marty and Dana slip away and make it down to the Ancient One's pit. They run into the director, played by Sigourney Weaver, who's in mid-explanation about why Marty needs to die to fulfill the sacrifice. Dana almost goes along with it, but then a werewolf attacks her, and Patience Buckner shows up and kills the director. Patience then tumbles into the pit, which is basically the gateway to the Ancient Ones. Marty and Dana decide, screw it, and chill together while the Ancient Ones rise up and trash the entire facility, plus that creepy cabin above. The entire setup in the film works as a big wink at horror movie cliches. The American facility's ritual looks a lot like your classic slasher scenario, with a final girl battling through all kinds of horror tropes. The audience, meaning the Ancient Ones, demand these tired cliches again and again, wanting more gore and spectacle. Writers Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon seem to say that we, the horror-loving public, have grown numb to old-school frights. We keep clamoring for bigger, more over-the-top experiences until the genre spirals into repetitive formulas. In other words, the Ancient Ones are basically us, the viewers, who keep shouting for fresh angles, twisted kills, and something new in our horror films. Yet we end up encouraging the same cycle of predictable tropes. The story becomes this big commentary on how horror fans feed the beast of their own dissatisfaction. Marvelous conclusion. In the cabin in the woods, each global branch of the organization uses different cultural tropes to fulfill the Ancient One's desires about the rituals. Every country's ceremony serves as both a valid sacrifice and a playful tribute to iconic horror subgenres. It's not enough for victims to just die. They have to die in a way that matches the script, or the Ancient Ones feel cheated. The interesting part is that if even one branch knocks it out of the park, the world keeps spinning. But when every branch fails, the Ancient Ones decide it's game over for humanity. That's the messed up bottom line. All these wild, sometimes cheesy horror scenarios exist to feed cosmic gods who demand yearly blood. One group's success is everybody's salvation. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, be safe, and thanks everyone.